This is our panel on social entrepreneurship, which you guys, if you don't know what that means yet, you will, hopefully, at the end of this hour. My name is Boyle. I am a lecturer in entrepreneurship at the Annenberg School. I'm also the associate director of the Annenberg Center on Communication, Leadership, and Policy. And this fall, I started something called Civic Tech USC, which looks at how new media and technologies can help to improve our democracy. We have some amazing women on the panel today, so really my role is just to introduce them and then get out of the way. Let them talk, let you guys ask questions. And yeah, hopefully we have a great panel. So I guess I'll just start going this way. And I actually happen to know all of these women, which I don't know if that was planned or not, but it just worked out. So Rediate is, in addition to being a graduate of one of our master's programs here at Annenberg, the Comm Management program, she is the founder of the Ethiopian Diaspora Fellowship, which is an organization that targets and finds women from the Ethiopian diaspora living outside of Ethiopia and sends them back to do 6-month fellowships in that country. Very cool program. She's done all kinds of other work before that. She was working in fundraising and strategy at the Population Media Center, making entertainment, education documentaries. She co-founded something called Integrate Africa, which was kind of like a consultancy for startups and social businesses working in Africa. She worked on Girl Rising. Has anyone seen that movie, Girl Rising? Woo! Yes, very cool film, amazing film. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It also turned into a global campaign, which is probably still ongoing, about education for girls. And she's currently working at the Gate Foundation doing work on their Redbird initiative. She has like 6 current jobs on her LinkedIn thing, so I don't know how that works. And like I said, she got her master's here at USC. Morra is the founder of Women Online, which is a boutique digital PR and content marketing firm that specializes with engaging women across all kinds of platforms on the internet. She also started and runs something called the Mission List, which is a curated list of influential women in all different fields and around all different causes. Before her career as an entrepreneur, she was the VP of Interactive and Social Marketing at Edelman, which is a global marketing and communications firm. And before that, she was in politics. So she was the online director of online for Kerry Edwards' 04, the presidential campaign. She had a similar role at the DNC. She was, I think, the first person to get Hillary Clinton on the internet for a live chat way back when. So she's done all kinds of amazing stuff. She's taught at the Yale Women's Campaign School, at the Harvard Kennedy School, at Hopkins. And she was a guest in my entrepreneurship class a couple weeks ago, actually. And she's a total whiz on all this stuff that you guys are studying at the Annenberg School, or if you have aspirations to get into media and communication. She's great. All that. Finally, Lisa is the administrative director at 31 Bits, which is another amazing organization that works with women in Uganda who produce fashion items to sell around the world. She also worked on Capitol Hill as an intern for Representative Ed Royce in California. She worked in human rights for UN Women and a whole host of other stuff. And she is also a graduate of our public diplomacy program, which you guys are here for today. So we have 2 USC Annenberg grads here, and then Morra, she went to Harvard and Brown, which I haven't heard of them, but they're somewhere on the East Coast. But still, we're welcoming her. So with that probably too long introduction, I'm just going to turn it over to each of the 3 women so they can tell you a little more about their work, and then we can get into questions.
Sure, we will keep it short because I like questions better, but I run Ethiopian Diaspora Fellowship. So Ethiopian Diaspora Fellowship sends Ethiopian Americans back to Ethiopia for 6-month service-oriented fellowship with partner organizations in Ethiopia. We're based basically to address 3 issues, which is human resource capacity issues in Ethiopia as a developing country that's developing very, very quickly, as most of you know. The second issue is the diaspora identity, so being part of 2 cultures. You don't have to be Ethiopian and American to understand what it means to be part of 2 cultures and how difficult that is and what that means for your identity. So we address that. And then thirdly is there is not another organization doing this. So basically people that send people back to sub-Saharan Africa tend to send Westerners. And so we were just trying to do something different and focusing on the millennial Ethiopian population, because there are some organizations that send Ethiopians back, but they tend to send like doctors or lawyers or people in 10 years experience, 15 years experience, which most millennials do not have. So that's our focus there. And then we are based on 3 pillars. Everything we do is in 3. But like we're based on 3 pillars, which is leadership, service, and creative storytelling. So everything, our program, our curriculum, how we look at the lens of everything is based on these 3 pillars. That's like what drives our organization. So leadership is pretty obvious why we think we want our fellows to be better leaders. And they're all in mid-management level positions. That's where we put them in so that they can pull the people up from the bottom and so that they can help the people at the top and also learn from the people at the top, right? That's why we put them in the middle. Secondly is service. We believe in servant leadership. So if you know that the leadership, like servant leadership theory and what that means, but it's basically you serve others and that's how you are a leader. That's a very, very easy way to put that. It's way more complicated, but you can Google it. And then the last one is creative storytelling, and that's twofold for us. So one is creative storytelling. We believe that in order to be a good leader, you need to be able to tell your own story, especially as a bicultural or cultural translator. You want to be able to talk about that story because there's empowerment in that, which I'm sure we'll all talk about. And then secondly, we want to change the narrative of Ethiopia. So the millennials that grew up here, even I was born in Ethiopia, but the ones that are born here, if I say Ethiopia, you say famine. Like that's how we grew up, and I didn't think of anything good about Ethiopia. So instead of complaining that there isn't enough content that's good about Ethiopia or like authentic or real, we create it. So our fellows are constantly creating content, and that is part of our curriculum. Like they do blogs, they do social media, they do everything that we can. So all of our content is trying to tell the counter narrative, right? And then lastly, how it kind of goes with like diplomacy is we're cultural diplomats. Most people in Ethiopia think that American life is very different than the realistic American life, especially as children of immigrants or immigrants ourselves. They have no idea how we grew up. So that is our cultural diplomacy, but we also do like knowledge sharing, and our whole program is based on being diplomats, accidental diplomats really, because we didn't know we were gonna have to do that, and that's what we're based on. Is that enough?
Great.
Yeah.
Hi. I know this is a panel on social entrepreneurship, so I'm gonna talk a little bit about that. I founded my business, I started as a freelancer in grad school, actually, when I was, I went to grad school when I was starting at 29, so, had been working for a while and, kept working at the beginning and freelancing and digital consulting, and that was great. And it sort of became an accidental business over a few years, and I formally started it in 2010. And we are a mission-based business, and it was very intentional. I mean, we try to be a business most days. We try not to be a nonprofit, but we're a consulting firm, so clients pay us for our services, but we work on a sliding scale. So if we work for a very small and scrappy nonprofit, we will charge them not market rate. We'll give them a very reasonable fee. If we're working for a giant Fortune 500 company, we will charge them market rate. And we hope that it all meets in the middle. In addition, every quarter we do one pro bono project. So we did a lot of pro bono work last year for the United Nations SDGs, for example. We were on a communications committee with 30 agencies all donating their time actually to try to help pop the SDGs. And so every quarter or so we pick a totally pro bono project. So, we really believe, because our mission is doing work that empowers women and uses social media to help women amplify their own voices and help, women with big megaphones get important issues out there. Part of that is, yes, we're a business that we try to make money, but we also, want to be able to do work that's meaningful. And if people, want to work with us, we try not to let fees stop us all the time. So I just want to show you some pictures, some examples that, you guys probably know this stuff way better than me because I'm old, but, I think that part of what's really exciting for me and my personal journey is that I've been sort of living this life as an influencer, and I think that, we were just talking about this, I didn't actually know what public diplomacy meant when I came to this, I didn't know that there were firm rules about working within confines, but I think that if you have an online voice, as you mentioned, you are sort of in this day and age at some level a diplomat. You're speaking on behalf of something. And so, our work is actually mostly about getting a U.S. audience to really care and dive in on issues that matter to them. We sometimes do work with international audiences, but much more it's consumer work about American audiences. So it ranges from the very silly and fun to the very serious. But I think that that's what's amazing about it, and that's why I love social media so much, because it provides us a way to get everyday folks. I do a lot of work with busy moms. We always say that we work at the intersections of women's passions and interests and their to-do lists, right? So a lot of us, we want to change the world, but we're really busy, right? We have to fit it in between nap time and commute. So how can we give people ways to use social media to do that? And so it's everything from, this is a really fantastic campaign that we did with Children's Miracle Network Hospitals, where we asked a bunch of women in key markets to raise money and spread the word about a marathon where you could just walk a mile every single day for 26.2 days and raise money for kids. And one of our influencers posted it on BuzzFeed, which is amazing. That's 19 million impressions. That piece got 19 million impressions, and those of you who are in the PR marketing business know what that means. This stuff has real power. It was free. This is a bunch of women lobbying on Capitol Hill for Shot at Life, which is a jointly funded by Gates and Gavi Alliance and a bunch of other vaccine-focused nonprofits. And we do a lot, and the United Nations Foundation heads it and incubates it. And the brief there is really to get U.S. moms engaged in lobbying for foreign funding for global vaccines. And so it's everything from working with bloggers to bringing folks to Capitol Hill for the first time, which is an amazing feeling. We work with Malala Yousafzai quite a bit. We work with Malala Fund, and we worked on the release of her film, and most recently with Nat Geo on the premiere of He Made Me Malala on television for the first time. And again, that's all about bringing Malala's message to a U.S. audience. And this is, you can't read it, but it was so amazing because one of the women we worked with, who's a super influential blogger and photographer, she was really moved by the movie, and then she brought her son, into Malala's story, and she did a ton of work and posting in short films about that, so sharing the journey of what it means to go, to see life a little bit through Malala's eyes, and then hopefully he brings it to school and he talks about it and it gains power. This is work we did for Obama when he was running for re-election. We did a really fun campaign trying to get moms out to vote in targeted states, and we use creativity, we use Pinterest, we use Instagram, we use fun and beautiful visuals sometimes, because we all know that if you catch the public's eyes, you can get them into engagement. We had women, this is for AARP, women in midlife can feel ignored by the marketing industry, and so we did a fashion show with Today's Show with influencers. This is work for American Cancer Society. So you get the picture. And then, this is me. I mean, the most amazing thing in my journey doing this work is that I went to speak at the World Bank and in their spring meetings a couple of years ago to talk about this work and why it's so important to bring everyday women into global change. And we all know this, right? But sometimes it seems like the powers that be in Washington forget it. And this is me at the White House with Secretary Sebelius. We did a Facebook Live chat a couple years ago when they were trying to soften. You guys know what a policy window is, when you soften before a policy window. That was a big piece of it. I mean, the White House is so smart at that. They knew that if they didn't get women mobilized for the Affordable Care Act, it was going nowhere. So I went for a big blog network called Blog Her, went to the White House, took a bunch of women's questions about what the Affordable Care Act meant for them. So I hope that just gives you a snapshot. And I just wanted to close it. I mean, I know that we're going to hear from Lisa, and I put this slide up before I knew that your company was going to be on, but this is my friend Jane Mosbecker-Morris, who founded an incredible company called To The Market. It's survivor-made goods. You can check it out. It was just the New York Times, but it's a social enterprise. And so on the flip side, online influencers and people who are sort of internet famous really want to support social enterprises. And if any of you are thinking about starting such a business, and I'm sure you'll talk about this, it's really wonderful to think about what kind of communities you can engage online, especially if you don't have a big marketing budget, to further your good work. So you can also think about that. That's it.
Okay, I'm going to share actually a short video that kind of summarizes what we do, and then I'll talk a little bit about that too. You may already know the story. Uganda, plagued by a 25-year-long war. Children trained to be soldiers. Villages and farms destroyed. 2 million people displaced, left homeless, jobless, and desperate. But when we actually went to Uganda, our perspective changed. We met women with names and stories, women who are filled with joy and skills, women who are ready to step forward and get a fresh start. The identity of 31 Bits was born, and we began our journey with 6 Ugandan women who are combining creativity with recycled paper to make incredible jewelry. We realized we had a market and they had a skill. Together, we made a business. We've taken a simple product like jewelry and replaced it with a new product that is doing something good. Through the power of business and holistic care, women are being empowered to rise above poverty. When a woman enters our program, she enters a community where she can earn an income, be educated, and dream for her future.
I'm Gladys Orombi, the Livelihood Programming Manager. Our main purpose here is to empower the most vulnerable women so that in future they can sustain themselves.
When we join 31 Bits, even some of us don't even know how to greet. But now, most of us even speak English. That is the benefit we have got from here.
If we live with 31 Bits, I think we will know business and we are going to do it at home. And that will help us keeping our children.
We have been seeing how we can help the most vulnerable, which are those who are HIV positive. Their key problem is treatment, because treatment is their life. Those who are found positive were enrolled in the castle treatment.
So we don't want them, after the 4 years contract with 31 Bits, to go back to the same problems that they came with. We want them to be changed and different, able to sustain themselves after 31 Bits.
We believe true economic sustainability is a result of holistic care, enabling a person financially, spiritually, mentally, and physically. After 4 years in our program, a woman has an education, a career, confidence, and a voice. She is empowered to rise above poverty. "31 Bits is part of a movement revolutionizing the way people do business. Businesses that are conscious of both the creator and the consumer. And we believe business is a powerful force behind bringing change in women's lives." Join 31 Bits in the movement in creating change through your purchases.
We started with 5 founders, actually, all under 30 now. They were college seniors when they started and traveled to Uganda. And I've been with them about 1.5 years now, but we've expanded to about 150 women that we work with. And kind of what the video said, it's very holistic in that when they graduate, they become fully self-sustainable. So we enable them to have the tools they need to become entrepreneurs in their own communities. So as of this year, this will be our 3rd year of graduates. So all these women, you can read their stories. There's a hashtag we've created on social media called Beyond Bits, and you can read about what they're doing now. They've all created their own businesses and they're giving back to their communities. So one has a pig farm, one has started a market, one has a restaurant. So they're kind of doing things that are needed. That's not necessarily connected to the jewelry that they've been making, but that really sustains their community and allows them to provide a livelihood for themselves and their families. Part of the holistic care that we give them is financial training. Some of the things we take for granted, they've never been able to set up a savings account, to learn how to budget. We give them those tools they need, and we give them a loan if they need it. And we just work with them at their skill level. It's very individual focused, and we make sure that they're succeeding along the way, and we work with them to get them there. So it's a really cool holistic concept, and it's been such a cool thing for me to be a part of and to learn the social enterprise aspect. And we kind of alluded to a lot of the marketing and how social media plays a role, and that's a huge thing for us as a fashion business. We really want to make sure we're cutting edge, and we don't want to be making products that people look at and just want to buy because they want to support the women, but we want to make good products that tell us the story. So they're looking at something, like this necklace I'm wearing is one of the pieces, but there's a lot of really like beautiful things. We have a great design team, and they're just making stuff that we're staying on top of the trends, the fashion, like what's happening, what's going to be predicted the next year. We want to make sure that it's really something that people want to represent us and that they want to buy no matter what. So that's a big part of what we do. So we partner with celebrities from time to time. We had Sophia Bush travel out to Uganda with us last summer, and she did a whole campaign for us. We've had Hillary Duff promote us. So really cool stuff like that that gets our story out is a big part of what we do. You can look us up on Instagram. That's our favorite social media tool. We use that a lot for developing our following and sharing the story. The narrative is really powerful, and we constantly want to remind our customers and our followers whose lives they're supporting and who's benefiting from their purchases, because it is a holistic business. We don't take donations. It's all funded through product sales. So it's a really neat concept that allows us to operate as a business and not as a nonprofit, which is something we're really passionate about. But yeah, that's 31 Bits in a nutshell.
Great, thank you guys. So like I said, I really want to send it out to you guys to just see what questions you have. I just have a couple to get us started. And actually, before we even go to those, since this is a panel about social entrepreneurship, maybe we can kind of define it a little more, because we've been talking about it a lot. But for those who don't know or are new to the concept, right, you have business, so like a traditional business, or you have nonprofits. And social entrepreneurship is somewhere in between. So does one of you guys have a good definition that you can just give to us?
I feel like it's very somewhere in between.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of double bottom line, right? The goal of the business is to turn a profit, but it's also to provide some positive social benefit, right?
Yeah, I'm doing some research right now on how social media is developing social enterprise, and I think in my research I found the social aspect of enterprise can be anything that centers on creating community. So it doesn't even have to be a business, but something that, kind of like the public diplomacy aspect, that brings people together and that has that social component that is creating some type of change, bringing some type of positive impact that's working in communities, but bringing people together in ways they normally wouldn't be able to connect, I think.
I think the only thing I would add is you have to be intentional about the social impact that you're making. So especially in Ethiopia, for example, our partners are a lot of social enterprises, and it's fine. Any business you make there, you can say my social impact is I'm hiring people, which is great, but like what about your hiring them is actually making a social impact on their lives. So I think with 31 Bits, when they're doing like holistic social impact, like they're actually educating the women, they're doing other things so that the women don't end up being in the exact same place they were 4 years before the program. So I would say I'm pretty skeptical when it comes to social enterprises, because it's like people are tending, especially in Western society, to call anything a social enterprise. But if you're not intentional about the social mission, then I think you're a business. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, it's been a lot of businesses just over the past few years have reclassified themselves as social businesses, right? Like whether it's Ben & Jerry's or Patagonia, or there's all kinds of companies, and you can argue.
There's a pretty rigorous certification called B Corp, which is actually on my to-do list. I think that there's it's definitely gotten out of control, and so I think that there's some movement to sort of make there be some regulating factors.
Mm-hmm. Just to get a sense, how many people in this room have either started their own business or nonprofit or thought about it? Okay, yeah. So we've got a few people, and so I think what might be helpful is, in our class on entrepreneurship, the first and the main question people always have is, I've got an idea, and I'm passionate about this thing, but how do I actually take that first step or those first few steps to take it from an idea into something that is real and that exists? So I just want to get perspectives from each of you on that and sort of how you take those first steps.
Sure. Is it because I'm in the first line? Because it doesn't really have to go that way.
Yeah, but whoever wants to jump in.
That's a really big question. I would say, I can just speak from personal experiences. Social capital is really important when you're an entrepreneur, which means like your network. And for me personally, as a child of an immigrant, as a minority woman, it was that was what stopped me, is like, okay, I have this idea, and this idea came off of my master's thesis, funny enough, which I never actually did that thesis. But I was like, I have this idea, but then what do I do now? Because I knew nothing about starting anything ever in my life. My parents are not entrepreneurs, like my family is not, so I didn't know where to start. And my biggest advice for anyone that's sitting here with this idea is you need to surround yourself with people that know what they're doing, because you don't. Like, just come to the table saying, like, I actually don't know what I'm doing. Here's how much I know. So I'm going to find someone that has already started another program and have lunch with them. I'm going to find someone that understands what mentorship is, and because we wanted mentorship, and talk to them. I'm going to join Dr. Call's class. I don't know where he is, but like, I literally signed up for I signed up for his class because I'm like, I think what I kind of want to do is diplomacy, but I Googled diplomacy. And I was like, sounds good. So I joined his like cultural diplomacy class, which changed my life, because I realized my idea was a real thing. You know, like I wasn't reinventing any wheel. Fellowships, Fulbright, all these things were already out there, and he was really helpful in being like, yeah, of course it's a real thing, obviously, you know. And so once I learned that there was other frameworks out there, I was able to just like pull from what I needed. So I think just coming to it humbly and asking a lot of questions. I don't know, is that helpful?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think that, you know, I'm a small business owner, right? So I think the only difference between being an entrepreneur or a business owner and a non is if you have money, honestly. I mean, money, you know, if you're going to start a business, even if you're going to start a nonprofit, at some level you have to be sustainable. So you either need to get outside funding or you need to fund it yourself. And I think that is the piece that is the hardest, especially for women. We're not raised that way traditionally. I think for me, it took me a long time to actually, this sounds pathetic, but to be able to like look at my cash flow statement and not have a wave of anxiety, you know, to actually have to look at my books as a grown up and not feel like, you know, like a little girl who had done something wrong. So, I mean, I think for me, what I would just like to say, because there's, Lord knows, lots and lots of stuff about entrepreneurship out there, is, you know, it's at the end of the day, it's got to be about money. And so you need to have a cold-eyed approach and surround yourself with people who understand it.
Finding the right balance when you're starting something, is it, like, do you have a clear vision? Is it really meeting a need? I know for the girls who started 31 Bits, it really was birthed out of something very spontaneous, where they met these women and they had a product, and then they created a market for it, and they developed it along the way. At first it was very basic. Paper jewelry is kind of native to the area. They were already kind of doing it. It was very multicolored, but then they developed it into something that could be even greater and that could come up in the fashion market. So realizing that at first it may seem very simple and may not seem like it has a lot of potential, but being able to see that vision very clearly and where you want to take it, and that it's meeting that need, I think is really important, because you want your cause or your social enterprise to really make the world a better place. So if you ever have to leave that region, especially if you're working in another country, you're going to leave it better than when you started. And that's the goal with what we do, is we never want to put these women in a bad position where they're depending on us for everything. We want to give them the tools they need to sustain themselves. So with social enterprise, I think that's really important to keep in the back of your mind going into it. And I know the money issue is huge, especially if you're doing nonprofit work, you're fundraising, you're writing grants, you're doing a lot all the time. With 31 Bits, they were able to, early off, they were able to connect with a really cool campaign with reef sandals. They were called Ugandals. If you look it up, you might be able to find a picture, but they put these beads on these paper beads on their sandals, and this kind of launched them into something where they didn't realize it would take off this big, and it forced them to really get more structured and to provide organization and to put the business model into practice. But at first it was kind of like just figuring it out along the way. These girls didn't have business backgrounds or anything. So surrounding yourself with the mentors and the people that know what they're doing is crucial to success. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I think that's great advice. I mean, Lisa, you're talking about sort of making sure that you're solving a real problem and filling a need. The number one reason startups fail and new enterprises in general is because there's no market need for them, right? No one wanted the thing that they made. So really thinking about that and making sure you've got it's true. It's like 42% or something of the failures go back to that. Money, I think, is huge to be thinking about how you raise money, how you manage your money, and then also this idea of asking for advice. Rediate, I just want to dig a little deeper into your own story, kind of connecting these things, because you are explaining that you started from a place of really not having any idea. You hadn't any idea of how to start something, that is. Yeah, you had an idea of what you wanted to do and that this was a program you had in mind, but you didn't know where to start. So just even in a more specific way, once you kind of started talking to people and got some advice, how did you, whether it was, raise that first bit of money or launch a website, what specifically did you do to get it off the ground?
Yeah, so just a little bit to her point is we did research. We used Qualtrics and sent out a survey to our population, and we expected 200 people, because our population is Ethiopian diaspora millennials, so you're already like narrowing it down. We sent out that survey just not really knowing what we were going to develop. We wanted 200 people within 2 weeks, and if any of you guys are researchers, that's a ridiculous amount of people, and like a stupid goal. But we got 387 in 3 weeks. So that in itself told us that these people want to be heard. They don't feel like people are talking to them and they have something to say. And our survey was 23 questions, which is ridiculously long for a survey, but they filled out every single question and like wrote in thoughtful answers. So that is how we started. As far as practical steps is doing the research to figure out, is there even a gap or am I just crazy? Am I the only one that feels this way? Is it my circle of friends or is this a bigger problem? So we did that research, and then anytime you start, like she said, money is an issue. We are a nonprofit, which is, if you're gonna start something, I would try to figure out right now, how are you not gonna be a nonprofit? But we are a nonprofit, and as a nonprofit, it's like you need to ask for money, and as a woman, asking for money is just not, I can say personally, not the way I was raised. Giving money all day long when I don't even have it, but asking is so hard. It is so hard. And you can ask any of the men in my life, I had to get some get it together conversations before I went to talk to donors, don't walk out there without asking. You have to ask. You literally have to say, so will you go give me money? That has to come out of your mouth. People don't just say, oh, here's $5,000. Unless you're super blessed. But so I would say that this thing is I asked my network. So when you start something, what I understood is people invest in you. They don't invest in what you started quite yet because they don't really know. We didn't prove our theory of change, so we couldn't apply to grants. We didn't know if we were doing something right yet. So I asked my family and my friends, knowing that I couldn't do it again, but I had to prove that their money went to something right. And then this year, we're charging more for our fellowship. We're charging more for our partnership. We're charging more all around because we realized we did something that worked and more people want it. Is that helpful? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I think that's enough to kind of get us started and get you guys thinking. So if there are any questions, let's bring them on. And I've got plenty more if you don't have any. Yes, over here.
Yeah, question. You guys have all talked about business, under the acumen, knowing how it works, right? And I think this is something, so I'm in tech, and this is something I see with a lot of women in tech, is that you're really good at the front end, but the back end is all men, right? Everyone who runs the technical part are guys. And so this actually, I think, for a lot of women, I've tried to get into classes, and they've said, no, sorry, you're in the Edinburgh school, you can't take this class. It's because you have to have this set of skills prior to having any sort of basic knowledge. And so have you come across this, and how are you trying to facilitate ways for women and other people who are trying to get into these kinds of business, where you should have a diverse set of knowledge, because that gives you power. But the problem is that it's really hard to get things like technical knowledge, business knowledge, right? For all of you, it seems like this was a trial by fire, which is, if you're really lucky, it works. But for a lot of people, it doesn't. Is there any suggestions, or how are you trying to open the field to, more access to a sort of diverse set of, skill set? Or if anybody you know is trying to do that?
It's funny. I am so grateful that there's so much movement around women in STEM right now. I am a total hypocrite if I speak to it. I work in PR, I work in social media, I work in the pink ghetto big time. You know, I do women's issues, I work with moms.
I love that.
It's true. And so, and I pay a price for it because no one will pay me as much. And so I have no good answer for you because you're so right. But I would say that, I mean, I can't speak to the tech piece because I don't care, I don't want to do it. But the business piece, like, we're smart. It's not rocket science. It's common sense. I think that there, again, has been so much mystification of all of this. So I guess what I would say is, like, you know, if you're smart enough to go to Annenberg, you're smart enough to figure out your balance sheet. I mean, it's just, that part is not, I don't think it's rocket science.
Yeah, I agree, but we hire women. So like when we do even internships, and I know some people are going to be like, well, what about the men? But we hire women interns, and when we like hire we also hire men interns that don't not apply to our internships. But like even the interns within our organizations that work with us on a daily basis, I am very thoughtful about like making sure that women are part of our team. And then on top of that, like I ask them, what do you want to do? So like I'll give you a prime example is we hired an intern from the Marshall School of Business, and she came in as like a business intern, business development intern. And then I could just see she wasn't like kind of vibing with us, and we're a remote team and you just have to have the same culture as us. And so I asked her, what do you really want to do? And she's like, I love graphic design and website development. And I'm like, what are you doing in Marshall? She's like, I just didn't know I was good at it and I loved it. So we moved her to be a website development technical intern. We let her play around on our website, like try to figure those things out. And now, circle up a year later, we hired her as a consultant, and she is our website consultant. And now I work with her on like 3 different projects in my own consulting. I hire her for different projects. And like for me, that is the moment, because we know how hard it is to say to someone, I'm in the wrong internship, I want to be in this internship, or I have this skill, I don't have this skill, especially as women coming into it being like, can I ask, can I say this? So I think I think all 3 of us probably provide an opportunity for those questions to be asked. So ask like, what else do you want to be doing? I don't know, is that what you're, okay.
Okay. Other questions?
And this could be directed to any one of you or all 3 of you. How do you evaluate when things don't go well? What are some lessons learned from failure that sometimes in the end could be success? And it's not always a path of planned, strategized success. Sometimes things fall apart. What are some experiences that you may have had in that you walk away with going, okay, well, it ended up being a success, this is what I got out of it?
Yeah, I think that's such a good question. We, at 31 Bits, a lot of it is trial and error. I think through the years, like narrowing down our target audience, we used to say yes to everything, from events to donations. I oversee all of our donations, and like what businesses and companies they ask us to help sponsor stuff, like which ones are good for us to invest in. We used to always say yes and just give a lot of our time and our effort and our product sometimes to these things. But through the years, actually just this last year, we sat down as a team and we did a very detailed target audience. We came up with a name, an age. Her name is Ella. We have everything she loves to do, and like where she'll be shopping, where she'll be traveling, what she does, like her goals, her life, what does it look like? It's very, very specific. And in some ways, like there's not one person that's ever going to be this person, but it gives us a way to say, hey, is Ella going to be at this event? Is she the one that's going to be picking up this product? Is she going to be shopping at this store? Because we work with retailers, so who do we partner with this? So like having that very clear focus has been so helpful for us this last year. It still allows us to take risks. We were just in this really cool monthly subscription box called FabFitFun. So we're going through the process of that. Is this a good investment for us? We're kind of still figuring that out. It's been a little crazy lately with orders and all sorts of things, so it's been neat. I think it will be really good for us in the long run, but still taking those risks. I don't think you'll ever get away from that, and learning from failure and success along the way. But looking back, we've done a lot of failures, like some things didn't work out, but you just learn from those, and you narrow down your target audience, I think, is the main key we've taken away from it.
I just want to, oh, sorry, go.
I
So comment, and then I have a question. So I went from working at a very large lab, and I always worked at large companies, to a Palo Alto startup, and it was wow, crazy. And I want to know, for you with the nonprofit, what do you do to prevent burnout?
Yeah. Sorry. Excellent question.
Or begrudging employees who started out with this passion and then are wishing that they were
somewhere else. Yeah, I think that is, you are the vision holder, so no one is going to love your vision as much as you love your vision. I would treat it like your kid. Like, as much as you love your kid, like your teachers love a kid, the kid's never gonna be as loved as the mom and the kid, right? So when we first launched, my husband we don't have kids yet, my husband got me a card that said, "Congratulations on your first kid." And it was our inside joke, because I'm like, I felt like I birthed something. Granted, I don't have kids yet. I know it's more complicated. But what I'm saying is, you kind of just have to realize that your employees will be burnt out, and so you need to be mindful about what they're doing, making sure they're doing things that they love to be doing and not just things you need them to be doing. And then giving them space to give you feedback and tell you that you need to change as a manager in different ways, because it's your first time in that nonprofit position. And as far as not burning out, like I've said, I do other things. So I currently just took on another consulting job that's giving me different skill sets so I could bring that to EDF, right? So I did get after a year, and I went to Ethiopia twice in that year, and I'm running the program and realizing what you're good at and what you need to be doing. So here's what I'm good at, but what I really need to be doing are these two things. So who can I pull in to help me with those other things? Because it's not sustainable. And I think, to speak to women in general, women tend to do a lot more, right? A lot more, just in general. We just try to do everything. We try to multitask, we try to do everything, and you can't. As the CEO, the founder, whatever, you'll do that for a year and then you're done.
I'm actually writing a book about this, so I'm gonna go on my soapbox. I reject the notion that that just because you're an entrepreneur, you have to kill yourself. I run an intentional business. I have 3 kids. I probably work 4 hours a day. I travel a lot, but and I have a slow growth business. I mean, my biggest failure is every year when I have to sit down with my employees and say, sorry, we're only gonna grow by X%, we're not gonna hire 2 other people, we're not gonna, because I wanna see my kids, So for me, actually, I think that the best thing is it's your business. As long as you make enough money, or you're a nonprofit and you fund it as much as you need to, if you have great ambitions, go for it. That's amazing. But I also think it's totally legitimate to say, this is what my ambition is for now. I'm okay with that. And so I don't know. I mean, I get a lot of sleep.
That's cool.
So I think that's important.
I'm gonna clap for that. I'm gonna read your book. I'll buy it now.
There you go.
Yeah, question.
So all of you are super talented and insightful and could do anything that you wanted to do and be successful at it. So what is it that you get personally from doing this sort of business? Why did you make this choice on a personal level? I know you talked about the greater good you're doing, but what about for you? What does it mean to you?
So right before I left Edelman, I guess it's long enough, it doesn't matter if it's off the record. But maybe don't share this on social media.
I think this is on video, but I don't know.
Just throwing it out there.
I was put on a client that was a global warming denier. And I had to sit there and figure out their internet strategy. And they'd be like, oh, darling, that's all a lie. The coal business. And I think I just was like, you know what? No. And so when I started my business, I said, this has to be for women because that's what I care about. And, it's just got to be something that I feel good about. I don't want to ever feel ashamed because I also worked for a lot of giant companies and then helping someone like Malala, not that she needs me because she's got a Nobel Prize. I mean, I don't have that fantasy, but every little bit, it's so powerful. That sounds cheesy, but it's powerful. And when you can draw power and great satisfaction from your work like that, I mean, there's no better feeling, I don't think.
Yeah, for me, I actually found out about this company while I was at USC and studying in the public diplomacy program. I had an interest in fashion and art, and I always wondered if it could have a greater purpose, because I always felt like it's very materialistic, it doesn't have any purpose behind it. But then I started researching and realizing there's actually ways to turn all of this into something good. And it has a rewarding factor personally, because I still get to focus on things that I love, whether it's design or putting together an outfit or helping a customer feel better about herself. Like bringing that value into someone's life is just kind of, this is the tool to do that. And I love that it's focused on women, because especially in other countries, they just don't have the same access to things as men. And part of my life mission and goal is to help mentor young women and give them the tools they need to reach their fullest potential. So this company is just a great way to keep that going and to find personal fulfillment from that. I think our interests are put in us for a reason, and sometimes it doesn't seem like they always connect, but finding the overlap over time is just so rewarding. And for me, like that convergence factor has just been so much fun through the years. This isn't something I'll probably be in forever, but for now, it's been really rewarding and fulfilling.
Yeah, everything they said, and I would say that mine is answering a question I've always had. So for me personally, like I was Ethiopian, but I was raised in Iowa. If you know anything about Iowa, there's not a lot of Ethiopians there. So that was really confusing, and it was just really confusing. So with our organization, we're answering these questions for other people, and I'm watching people get it. I'm watching people on an almost daily basis start understanding themselves better and start understanding their worth. And then I'm watching companies grow because our fellows are understanding their worth. And like that in itself, like if I could do this full time in a few years, like once I'm done learning from other things, or like, I would, because it's just been amazing to watch. And I would say like even our 5 fellows went last year, and two of them, in fact 3 out of the 5 are women, and all 3 of them wanted to stay there, but 2 of them got full-time jobs, and they're staying there on 2-year contracts. And one of the girls, she had never been back to Ethiopia. She was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia, like not Ethiopia. And she went back, and now she's working there 2 years. She hasn't been back here. She's staying there, and she's like in a position where she's helping other people. She's creating content, which is what she wanted to do. And so I think seeing that and hearing their stories, it's like I created something that I wish was there when I was growing up, basically. So then therefore I like vicariously live through these people. Maybe not that healthy, I guess.
I think that's a really good point. It's something we talk about in entrepreneurship all the time, which is scratch your own itch, right? Like think about and work on a problem that you have.
Love it. I should have just said that.
I actually got that phrase from Morra's husband, Nico, and he talks about it in our class. But scratch your own itch. If you're creating like a music listening app for bus riders and you've never ridden the bus and you hate music, it's probably not going to work. And I think all the women here have just talked about that. They work on things they really care about, and they find a way to make it work. Yeah.
Okay, so we're from Polish Learning Center. My students are taking an international finance class in which they're raising money for Kiva micro-lending project.
Oh, nice.
At this stage now they're looking for certain entrepreneurships in the different countries they've researched to invest their micro-loans into. So we were wondering, possibly Lisa could answer, how do you know what community, what made it, how did you pick the community that you wanted to work with?
Yeah, for us actually, the one founder who traveled there, she just saw, it's in northern Uganda, in Gulu, and there's not a lot of businesses or opportunities for jobs. So it seemed like a really natural fit, and actually women starting their own business is really valued there. So in that regard, it really works culturally because we want to be very sensitive to that aspect. But we are hoping to expand to other countries, and we're doing some pilot projects right now in different places, and it looks completely different than it does in Uganda. So being kind of aware that there's a need, but also what it's gonna look like culturally, and just being sensitive, and like what business means there, and like especially with microfinance, I know it's a little bit different because you're not going in and you're not running it yourself, but you're funding it. So making sure that you really understand the vision behind it and trust the people that are running it. And if you can help in any way, kind of consult and speak into the way it's going to go so that it can be successful. I'm not sure what that would look like in another setting, but it's kind of, I think it's unique no matter where you are. But for us, it was more about meeting the need and then finding the right people to connect with long term, because we have a team there that mostly Ugandan, a couple Americans, but people that we trust that we can connect with and stay up to date with, and so we don't have to be there all the time too. But yeah, it's more about the need, I think.
That's so cool you guys are working on that project. I mean, it's right on the topic of the panel. Muhammad Yunus, who's one of the people who kind of coined the social business term, started Grameen Bank, which is a microfinance bank in Bangladesh. He gave a speech, I think it's the commencement speech at MIT in 2008, all about social business and sort of how this works and inspiring people. It's really good. You should check it out.
What are you girls finding difficult about finding the organization?
We actually did find ours. We chose Senegal.
Okay.
I don't know why. She's, you want to explain who she is?
Oh yeah, we picked a retail store seller from Senegal, and she was looking for funding to help her purchase items to sell in her store, such as oil and rice and stuff. So we picked her because she had 4 kids.
Yeah, because I read that like out there, if they live in an agricultural world, so they don't have that many opportunities, and they don't get paid much, and they only get paid about $4 a day. And then also like out here, we have stuff like the county and stuff. The government helps us when we're not making income. Out there, they don't have help. So we chose them specifically because of their background and her family, her kids.
Nice. That's so awesome. Right? Went to the wrong school.
Cool. Do we have maybe one more question? Yeah.
So I'm in the master's program at the School of Social Work in Orange County, and something that they're really pushing us to learn is how to have measurable outcomes when we're doing like evaluations, whether in the health sector or a nonprofit. So how have you seen your companies maybe do different evaluations?
Yeah, we're all about measuring because we have to. Like, that's what donors care about, that's what grants care about, that's what everybody cares about. I would say start measuring from the day one. Start talking about how you're going to measure, what you're going to measure, what process you're going to measure in. So like for us, we have program evaluations, pre-program evaluations, we had mid-fellowship assessments, we have end-of-the-year assessments. Because the other thing is, as ugly as that word is, like measuring and metrics and all that, it makes you a better organization. So like, because we were measuring last year, we can do things better this year, and we can learn from our mistakes. We can't not everything is anecdotal. Like, everything can't be qualitative, even though I love that world. It has to be quantified, which just speaks to a lot what she was saying, is don't be scared to like look at numbers. Like, those numbers will drive what your qualitative story could be, right? So I would say always be measuring, being thoughtful about measuring the right thing too. And that goes with asking for advice. So we asked a lot of people, like, do you think we should measure just their social, like how they feel about themselves, or can we be measuring like their deliverables and the timeliness of their deliverables and their identity? How do you measure identity? Like as far as like survey, assessments, focus groups, questionnaires, one-on-ones. That along those lines? Yeah.
Yeah, for our women graduates, we do home visits. We follow up. We've had 2 years of graduates now, and we check their income levels, and all of them but 2 are making more than they ever made with us. So that's a huge indicator of success for us, and just we're kind of developing as we go too, since we're still newer, and trying to gauge the effects on the community and what we can do long term to build in sustainability into our programs even more. But yeah, we always keep that in mind.
Great. Any other burning questions? Okay, this was amazing. Thank you guys so much.